My wife said I wasn't man enough. After I lost my job, so I started a business, got rich, and served her divorce papers on her birthday. I'm a 34-year-old guy, and everything in my life unraveled the day I lost my job. One moment, I was walking out of the office with a steady paycheck and health insurance. And the next, I was carrying a cardboard box filled with my things, framed photos, half-dead desk plant, and a coffee mug that suddenly felt too heavy in my hands. At first, I tried to tell myself it was just a setback. My wife Amanda hugged me when I told her, but her arms felt stiff, like she was already pulling away. The silence in our living room that night was louder than anything. The hum of the fridge, the tick of the wall clock. They all seemed to mock me. "Don't worry, babe," I said, trying to sound confident. "I'll find something soon." She nodded, but her eyes didn't soften. Instead, she picked at her nails and muttered, "I hope so. We can't afford dead weight right now." The word stung, but I laughed it off, pretending I didn't hear the venom in her tone. As days turned into weeks, I filled out applications, sat through interviews where smiles felt forced, and watched rejection emails pile up like unpaid bills. Every morning I told myself, today will be different. But every night I went to bed with the same ache in my chest. Amanda stopped asking how the search was going. She started working late, or at least that's what she said. Dinner grew quieter, colder. She'd scroll on her phone while I tried to talk, her replies short. Clipped dot. I could feel it, the ground beneath my marriage shifting. I wasn't just unemployed. I was becoming invisible in my own home. The first insult came disguised as a joke. Amanda had invited a couple of her coworkers over for wine. I sat quietly at the table, trying to blend in. When one of them asked if I was still looking for work, Amanda smirked and said, "Yeah, he's on an extended vacation. Must be nice, huh?" Everyone laughed. I forced a smile, but my stomach twisted. Later that night, I asked her, "Why would you say that?" "You know, I'm trying." She rolled her eyes. "Relax. It was just a joke." "Don't be so sensitive." But it didn't stop there. The jokes became routine. At breakfast, she'd sigh and say, "Real men get up and go to work." You know, when I cooked dinner to take something off her plate, she'd sneer, "Thanks. But maybe focus on finding a job instead of playing house." Each comment was a tiny cut, and together they started bleeding me dry. I tried to fight back the shame by doubling down on applications. I stayed up late polishing resumes, rehearsing interviews in the bathroom mirror, desperate to prove her wrong. But her words always lingered in the back of my head. Not man enough. The tension spilled into everyday life. When friends asked us out, she'd say, "We're on a budget since someone can't provide right now." I could feel their eyes shift toward me, pity mixed with judgment. I stopped going out altogether. It was easier than enduring the humiliation. Nights in our bedroom turned icy. Amanda faced the wall, her phone lighting up her face while I stared at the ceiling. The woman I married, the one who once told me she believed in me no matter what, was gone, replaced by someone who seemed to take pleasure in my downfall. And for the first time, I started to wonder if she ever loved me at all, or if my paycheck had been the only thing holding us together. It wasn't long before Amanda's words went from sharp jabs to full-on accusations. She didn't just criticize me anymore. She started rewriting reality. One night, I told her I was feeling crushed by all the rejection. I just needed her reassurance. Instead, she crossed her arms and said, "You're not rejected because of bad luck. You're rejected because you're lazy. Admit it, lazy." The word hung in the air like poison. I had been applying to dozens of jobs every week, networking, even reaching out to old college professors for leads. But she refused to see any of it. Whenever I pushed back, she twisted my words. If I said, "I'm trying," she'd respond, "If you were trying, we wouldn't be in this mess." If I asked for support, she'd snap, "Stop making me the villain. You're imagining things." And soon her narrative spread beyond our walls. She stopped inviting me to outings with her friends. "It's just girls' night," she'd say. But then I'd see photos online, dinners, drinks, even double dates. I wasn't just excluded, I was erased. Her family, who once welcomed me warmly, grew distant. Calls went unanswered. At gatherings, they'd drop hints. "Maybe you should take any job just to get back on your feet." It was clear Amanda had been telling them I was dead weight. The worst part, a tiny part of me started believing her. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was right. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I was dragging her down. That's how gaslighting works. It eats at your reality until you can't tell the difference between truth and manipulation. And in that fog, I started to feel like I was fighting not just for a job, but for my very identity. The night I found out about Amanda's hidden life started like any other. She was working late again, and I was alone at the kitchen table, staring at another rejection email. The glow of my laptop screen felt cold, and for the first time, I wondered if she'd even come home. Around midnight, her phone buzzed on the counter. She must have forgotten it. At first, I told myself not to look, that it would make me paranoid that I'd be the bad guy. But the messages kept lighting up the screen. Notifications from someone saved simply as Chris, Curiosity 1. My hand shook as I opened the thread. You deserve better than being stuck with him. I don't know how you put up with that dead weight. When are you going to leave? And worse, Amanda's replies, sometimes I think about it. He just isn't the man I thought he'd be. You're the only one I can really talk to. It wasn't outright physical cheating, not yet, but it was betrayal all the same. Emotional intimacy, confiding in someone else, trashing me behind my back. My chest felt tight, my pulse hammering in my ears. When she came home, I confronted her. Who's Chris? Her eyes widened for a split second before narrowing. Are you seriously snooping through my phone now? God, you're pathetic. I tried to push back. You're telling another man I'm not good enough. How is that okay? She laughed bitterly. If you were good enough, I wouldn't need to talk to him. That line carved into me deeper than any insult she'd ever thrown. It confirmed what I feared most. I wasn't just failing in her eyes. I had already been replaced in her heart. And in that moment, the woman I married felt like a stranger. The breaking point came at a family dinner. Amanda insisted we go, even though I didn't want to. Her parents, siblings, and a few cousins were there, all gathered around the long oak table. I told myself I could survive one night, but I had no idea how cruel it would get. Halfway through the meal, her father asked politely, "So, any luck with the job hunt?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Amanda cut in before I could. "Please, he's been sitting at home like a housewife. I'm the only one keeping this roof over our heads." The room went quiet for a moment before her cousin chuckled. Someone else laughed, and soon it spread. I felt every eye on me, pity, mockery, judgment. My fork froze halfway to my mouth, and all I wanted was for the ground to swallow me whole. I whispered, "Why would you say that?" But she leaned in close and hissed, "Because it's true. Maybe if you were a real man, I wouldn't have to." I didn't eat another bite. I sat there, my chest tight, fighting the urge to storm out. When dessert came, Amanda clinked her glass and joked again. Here's to hoping he grows a backbone before the year ends. Everyone laughed louder this time. When we got home, I locked myself in the bathroom just to breathe. My reflection in the mirror looked like a ghost, hollow eyes, slumped shoulders. For the first time, I felt something break inside me. It wasn't just about being unemployed anymore. It was about being stripped of dignity, shredded publicly by the one person who was supposed to protect me. That was my rock-bottom moment. I realized if I stayed silent, she'd keep crushing me until there was nothing left. After that dinner, something inside me snapped. For weeks, I had been swallowing my pride, letting her words sink into me like poison. But as I sat alone in the dark living room that night, replaying every laugh, every sneer, every time she called me not man enough, something shifted. I realized I had two choices: let her destroy what was left of me, or quietly build myself back up while she wasn't looking. The next morning, while Amanda slept in, I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and my laptop. The sun was barely up, but my mind was alive. I started sketching out ideas, not job applications this time, but ways to create something of my own. I thought about the skills I had from my old job, the gaps in the market I'd noticed. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from a strange new excitement. Amanda walked in, groggy, and asked, "Still wasting time on that laptop?" I didn't even flinch. For the first time, her words didn't crush me. They fueled me. That became my routine. Days were spent pretending to still be in job search mode. Nights when she scrolled through her phone or went out with friends. I buried myself in research, online courses, and late-night brainstorming. I didn't tell her a thing. The house that once felt like a prison became my war room. The quiet hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, they weren't mocking me anymore. They were background noise to a man planning his escape. Amanda still mocked me daily, but she didn't realize every insult was another brick in the foundation of my comeback. For the first time in months, I felt something stronger than shame. I felt fire. Starting a business sounded empowering in theory, but living it was brutal. I thought I'd mapped out a solid plan, but the reality hit like a punch in the gut. My first few pitches to potential clients were disasters. Emails went unanswered. Calls ended with polite rejections. Every no felt like an echo of Amanda's voice telling me I wasn't good enough, but I refused to quit. I'd sit at the kitchen table until 2 a.m., drowning in spreadsheets and scribbled notes, guzzling cheap coffee just to keep my eyes open. Some nights, I'd stare at the glowing screen, my head in my hands, wondering if I was just proving her right. One night, Amanda caught me bleary-eyed at my laptop and scoffed. "Seriously, you're playing entrepreneur now. You can't even land a regular job, and you think you're going to run a business?" Her words burned, but I swallowed the anger and said nothing. Because I had learned something. Silence was my shield. Every cruel remark became fuel. Every doubt she spat at me turned into a reason to push harder. Money was tight. I skipped meals, cut back on everything, even pawned the watch my dad had given me. Amanda didn't know or care. She just complained about how I wasn't providing while she splurged on new clothes and weekend getaways with her friends. The house felt heavier every day, the air thick with her disdain. Still, I kept working in secret, chiseling away at the mountain in front of me. I told myself that every failure was a step closer to the one win that would change everything. And even though I was exhausted, humiliated, and broke, for the first time in months, I wasn't hopeless. I was fighting it happened on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day that usually blurred into the next. I had just finished yet another Zoom pitch, and I was sure it was another failure. The man on the other end listened politely, then said, "Send me the paperwork. Let's move forward." I froze. "Wait, you mean you're in?" "Yes," he replied casually, as if he hadn't just flipped my entire world upside down. When the call ended, I just sat there staring at the screen, heart pounding. My hands trembled as I scribbled numbers in my notebook. This deal wouldn't just keep the lights on, it could be the start of something real. For the first time in months, I felt air fill my lungs fully. I wasn't drowning anymore. I was climbing that night. Amanda breezed in from another late work meeting. She didn't notice the small grin I couldn't hide. "What are you smiling at?" she asked, tossing her purse on the counter. "Nothing," I said quickly, and it was true. It wasn't for her to know. Not yet. The weeks that followed were grueling but different. The long nights, the endless emails, the rejections, they still came, but I had proof now that it could work. Each new client chipped away at the doubt that had been eating me alive. Amanda, meanwhile, kept up her routine. Snide remarks, complaints about bills, jokes to her friends, at my expense. She had no clue that while she was tearing me down, I was quietly building something bigger than either of us had ever imagined. And every time she called me not man enough, I smiled to myself, because for the first time, I knew the truth. The comeback had already begun. The success didn't explode overnight, it grew quietly, like a fire smoldering in the dark. One client turned into 2, then 3. Within a few months, I was making more than I had at my old job. But I didn't say a word to Amanda. Every morning, I still played the part. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, pretending to scroll through job boards while really managing invoices and contracts. When she sighed and said, "Still nothing?" I shrugged, hiding a grin behind my coffee mug. Inside, I was burning with a secret she couldn't touch. I started paying off debts she didn't even know I was covering. I built up savings in a separate account, money that was mine, and every time Amanda mocked me for being useless, I reminded myself that her ignorance was my shield. The less she knew, the sweeter the payoff would be. There were moments when I wanted to shout it in her face. When she came home bragging about promotions at work, or when she joked to her friends, "He's basically my dependent now." I bit my tongue and stayed quiet, because I knew when the reveal came, it had to be perfect. And yet, part of me couldn't ignore the sting. Even with money flowing in, even as my confidence grew, the woman I loved still looked at me with contempt. She had no idea. The man sitting across from her at dinner was no longer broken. She thought she was crushing me. But in reality, I was sharpening myself on every insult, every laugh, every cruel word. And when the time came, I'd make sure she remembered them all. By then, I had built a thriving business, though Amanda still thought I was unemployed and floundering. The secrecy was deliberate. I wanted her words to cut deeper, to fuel me until the moment I chose to strike, and she delivered that moment on a silver platter. It happened during another family gathering. I hadn't wanted to go, but Amanda insisted. The same oak table, the same judging eyes. Only this time I carried a truth no one else knew. Halfway through the meal, Amanda raised her glass of wine and smirked. Here's to strong women, because clearly I didn't marry a strong man. Laughter erupted. I felt heat rush to my face, not from shame this time, but from anger held so tightly it nearly tore me apart. I leaned toward her and whispered, "That was too far." She scoffed. "Too far? Please, if you were half the man you pretend to be, I wouldn't have to carry you." Her words were acid. Around me, plates clattered, conversation resumed, but I couldn't hear a thing. All I could hear was her voice telling me I wasn't enough again. Again. That night, when we got home, I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and watched her scrolling through her phone, smirking at something on the screen. She didn't even notice the way my hands trembled at my sides. For months, I had endured humiliation, ridicule, betrayal, but her toast that night was the last straw. She didn't know it yet, but with every cruel word she had spoken, she had written her own ending. And I decided the ending would come on a day she least expected, the one she thought belonged only to her. Amanda's birthday arrived like a storm I'd been waiting to unleash. She woke up excited, fluttering around the house, dropping hints about jewelry, a spa day, maybe even a vacation. She had no idea the gift I had prepared was nothing she could wear, nothing she could flaunt, but everything she deserved. I let her believe it was just another morning. I made her coffee, wished her a soft, happy birthday, and even handed her a little gift bag with perfume she'd been eyeing. Her smile was smug, satisfied, as if I were finally playing the role of the grateful husband. But tucked inside the larger envelope on the counter, the one she assumed was a card, was the truth. She opened it with a dramatic flourish, expecting some sweet words and maybe a dinner reservation. Instead, her eyes fell on legal papers. Divorce papers. Her smile froze. "What? What is this?" I met her gaze calmly for the first time in months. "It's exactly what it looks like. Happy birthday, Amanda." Her face drained of color. She stammered, You can't be serious. You wouldn't survive without me." I slid a bank statement across the table, my business accounts brimming with money. Proof that I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. "You said I wasn't man enough," I told her quietly. "Turns out I'm more than enough. Just not for you." She looked at the papers, then at me, her mouth opening and closing without sound. For once, Amanda had no clever insult, no smug remark. The silence in that kitchen was sweeter than any birthday song, and I knew, finally, that I had taken back everything she tried to steal from me, my strength, my voice. When Amanda signed the papers, it was less about ending a marriage and more about reclaiming myself. I walked out of that house with nothing but a suitcase and my laptop. But for the first time in years, I felt weightless. The silence that used to suffocate me now felt like freedom. No more snide remarks echoing through the kitchen. No more icy stares across the dinner table. Just me, my business, and a future I had built from the ashes of her cruelty. I remember sitting in my new apartment that first night, staring at the city lights through the window. The air smelled different, clean, sharp, alive. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from Amanda, swinging between rage and begging. I didn't reply. She had already taken enough of my voice. I wasn't giving her another word. Instead, I wrote down everything I had learned. That love without respect is poison. That cruelty dressed up as jokes is still cruelty. And that sometimes hitting rock bottom isn't the end. It's the foundation for something greater. Amanda once told me I wasn't man enough. Those words used to haunt me. Now they make me laugh. Because being a man isn't about a paycheck or providing the way she defined it. It's about resilience, about knowing when to fight and when to walk away. But more importantly, I'm stronger, and the best gift I ever gave myself wasn't the business, or the money, or even the freedom. It was the courage to say, enough. Her birthday may have marked the end of us, but for me, it was the start of everything.